going to get into the Melbourne Storm. So, as I mentioned earlier, YouTube watchers, you'll be able to see the podcast on your screen now and the actual notes that we've got. So again, the first 5 rounds it shows, and a few of the talking points that we will get to throughout this podcast to help you and to help us stay on task, basically. For the podcast listeners, all good. I'll literally go through it now so you don't miss out, and you'll listen as we go. So the first 5 rounds for the Storm. Round 1 is the Eels at home. Round 2, the bye. Round 3, Penrith at home. Round 4, the Dragons away. Round 5, Manly away. The big talking points that we will get through, and there's plenty more other than these. Is Jerome Hughes now elite? Perhaps good value at 616K. Jack Howarth, the man pictured. Is he the go-to centre mid of the year? He is looking like an absolute tank. I cannot froth that picture enough. And just to let the listeners know, you'll be seeing that picture a hell of a lot more throughout the year, no doubt about it. Harry Grant, is he worth it? We will talk about that very, very shortly, actually. And should we be wary of the early draw? Obviously, the buy in there, and there's a couple of good teams there and a couple of teams that you don't really want to verse them away early on either. So we'll get into that. So straight away, let's talk about the hooker position when it comes to the Melbourne Storm. So there's 2 options available in the Supercoach app for the Melbourne Storm. First one's Bronson Garlick. He's a hooker /2RF, 260K. And Harry Grant, 691K. And basically at the elite go-to hooker in the game this year. Just quickly as well, just note, you might think, some of these prices seem a bit cheaper. If you haven't caught up to it yet, Supercoach, because of the flex option now, have made some of these prices a little bit cheaper just to offset the extra money you will need to get that flex player. Jesse, I'll go to you first. What are your thoughts around the hooker options at the Storm? And I guess the question for Grant, is he worth it?
Yeah, well, the hooker options at the Storm, there's really only one. I don't even really think you can count Bronson Garlick as a backup hooker, because you just imagine that Wishart will plug the hole anyway. So it really just leaves him as the only viable option. And like 691K, he's essentially the best of the best as far as the hookers go in general. But it's funny, like you look at the stocks for the hookers now, and like I'm very content going cheap at hooker, and I've done it for a little while. But last year he was 750K. You started with him. So you know what I mean? Like you look at that perspective, you started at 750 with him, but now at 691, not really getting much of a look in. So it kind of throws it a little, because it seems like the value of hookers is coming down, even though obviously he's got the massive amount of upside. So I think if you're going to spend big, like, last year we had Cook and Little both top it out, but now in the same club, neither of them are viable options. So the divide between the best and, the rest, it's gotten even further apart. And I think Grant kind of does stand out at that top. But even still, even at 691, which is great value for him overall, I still don't think it is. Not to start with. That's my opinion. I think he's one of those later in the year kind of guys. I think he's one of those hookers that you try and get in, you strive for, but obviously Origin comes around pretty quick. Their buy's quite early, round 2. So I don't know if I'd be spending that much in such a low upside position to begin the year with. But yeah, he's definitely like a, develop your squad, get the coin, get him in later on kind of player for me. So,
yeah. Trav, what do you got to add on the hooker situation at the Storm?
There isn't a hooker situation. It's all Harry Grant, and the only reason Harry Grant's not the hooker is because he plays Origin or is injured. So it's as simple as that. And then as Jesse has expertly said, it's probably Tyron Wishart that comes through and plugs that gap, depending on what other holes need to be filled. Bronson Garlick did play a couple of games at the hooker and did a good job, but yeah, he won't play that spot for us unless we really need him to. I don't hate anyone or don't hate the decision of playing Harry Grant and starting him as your hooker at 691. That's good value. That's great value for Harry Grant. Yep. There was the cheapest he got to was 602K. That wasn't until round 21, back off the Origin, a couple of slower minute games that he's played, and some injuries and things. At the end of round 8, you were able to get him at 654, which was a pretty good price. that was last year because of a slower year. Harry Grant sort of tends to have a bit of a slower year. I think with the start to the year with the bye and then the Penrith game, Penrith being Penrith and what we have, I think that's a concern. I wouldn't. Jesse's exactly right. I'm not going to put 691K into a Harry Grant in my hooker. I did have Plath in as a hooker spot, but I'm going to change that because I just don't see the value of putting. I just don't see the money being put into hooker just yet. And I think there's actually two really good rookie options to go there, but I don't hate the Harry Grant choice. If you just want to plug and play and say, yep, let's go and just deal with the bye round 2. Yeah, I don't hate it, but I think there's better value in the competition.
Yeah, the bye definitely hurts. The bye is definitely for mine a valid reason. And the Penrith game, the game after, just see how things are going. There's no doubt Harry Grant is the elite option when it comes to the hooker position. But I think what Jesse said a bit earlier as well, like I'm pretty content in that at the moment with my thinking. There's a few very good cheap options, which I know most super coaches out there already know about, and we don't need to go into that too much. We'll do that when we get to those teams. So it sort of feels like you can easily get 2 hookers for the price of Harry Grant, actually still save a bit of coin and feel like you're probably not going to do too badly in terms of miss out on too much early. And then perhaps look at the Grant option. But then by that time, you're looking at Origin, things like that. So it's really about timing your run, because you look at last year, there was the back end of his year, he got 3 scores in the hundreds. So he's definitely a really good option to make sure you watch and just time that run for Harry Grant, because he's always going to be able to get to those big 100 scores, which, to be honest with you, not many hookers in our game can do that at the moment. So that's a luxury to have, but at the same time, you got to make sure you get him at the right time. You're not wasting coin in doing so and losing, I guess, cash elsewhere. So, Jesse, you're smiling. Yeah.
Oh, because you were just to fast forward a little bit there. It's funny, actually. I just had a quick look back, and I actually started with Harry Grant in 2023, and he was 816.5K then. And I was like, he was one of the first players I locked into my side. And after 3 rounds, he actually went up in price. He had an absolute blinder of a start. And yeah, like he starts off strong, man. Like last year was a bit of an anomaly, really, when you look back at his stats, because, he hasn't got too many years reference, considering the Tigers was pretty much where it, peaked for him. But, mate, he's just got that guy. Like there's no other hookers really that can do what he can do. So if you want to spend up, like, yeah, man, go for it. He's the best there is. But 700K nearly, like there's so many other players, such much like higher upside. So yeah, you can never knock a Harry Grant start though. It's freaking terrifying to come up against in a head-to-head.
100%, and definitely a draft option, high up draftee pick for this year as well, no doubt. Moving on to the FRF, the front row position, with the addition of Stefano Utoikamano, this is going to eat into a couple of minutes, I think, for some of these forwards, and it'd be interesting to see if Stefano perhaps is on the radar of any of us here. So the list for that: Lazarus Valipu, 232K. Alec McDonald, 2RF dual, 341. Tui Kamikamika, 342K. Nelson Asafa Solomona has 2RF dual as well, 363K. Christian Welsh, 400K. Josh King, 488K. And Stefano Utoikamanu, 529K. Trav, you look at your front row options. Obviously, Stefano, huge signing. Is he or anyone else here tickling your fancy?
I am very intrigued by Stefano. Have watched very keenly over the preseason. I think he's someone ready to explode. He played 24 games last year for an average of 54 for the Tigers. That was on average of 50 minutes a game. Points per minute was 1.1. So I think that's freaking great for a front row forward. In my opinion, at that price, I think he's going to do that as a minimum. If not, well, I think we can chuck another 5 to 6 points. I reckon he's going to jump into about that 60-point average, I reckon. And I'm pretty confident in that. So I think that's really good value at that price. The only other one, look, there's 2 that I'm eager to see. Nas's price, what is it, 363 is a good price. And I think that's someone that we can look at for later on. I reckon Nas has got a bit to prove. And I think if he can just come on and be a couple of points per minute or a point and a bit per minute guy around that 40 minutes, that he'll get 30, 40 minutes, I reckon he might be a nice little drop down target at some point to make 100, 150K. So he's on the watch list. The other one that is on my watch list is Violepu as a rookie. And I have him currently in my front row as a rookie. I think the price of 232, he was blooded a bit last year. He played in the grand final. Obviously, he needed to because he replaced Nas, but I think there's a need for him. Yeah, I'm pretty keen on him, and he's definitely on a watch list as well. So, yeah, just watch him for a rookie.
Jesse, thoughts around the front row position?
Man, I really like Stefano. I think Trav's pretty much nailed it. I reckon he's going to be a 60 average guy as well. And I think the Storm are really going to get the most out of him too. They did it with Blore, you know what I mean? Like, they're getting these guys from the Tigers, great potential, and they just unlock them. Like, they just come through and they just hit another level. So I reckon he's just going to honestly hit the ground running. I have that feeling he's just going to be an absolute world beater. So I have tossed the decision around as well, like putting him in the side, and it looks good. You know, when you just like put a player in and it just feels right. He kind of has that about him. But the only thing that sort of throws me a little is, like, again, there is the round 2 buy, and he's basically the same price as Tino. And when you put the two together, it kind of goes, like, I feel like I should be going Tino instead. So no knock on him. He's just unfortunately priced 2K under him. And I'm just like, well, I know who I'd rather have. But no, I think he's great, man. I think he's going to be good. And I don't see his price dropping. I just think he's either going to hold or probably pip a little. But yeah, it's pretty steady for him there. I'm not too keen on all the other guys, to be fair. I think they're all priced pretty well accordingly. Josh King's lost his jewel, unfortunately. He was a great draft asset last year for me, but there's a few other guys. They kind of just do their shift. But yeah, Valepu, he's that rookie guy that, if he does get a spot, like at 232K, you really can't go wrong. But again, you hope he does a little bit more than 20 points here or there. But again, with the flex, it's not as critical to have to worry about these guys just killing you on the rescore. But for your loops, but man, there's a fair few there, but I don't think there's too many viable options besides what Utokumano could actually do. So yeah.
I'll ask you, Trav. You are obviously the Storm fan, and I know you're very big on Stefano. I'm going to say I'm not as keen as you two on him. I've got a reason here behind it. And I just want to know if it makes sense, Trav, because I look at these 7 options, and I can make a realistic argument for all 7 of these players who should be in the 17 on a week-to-week basis. I think there's going to be some minutes being played here, and I feel like there's going to be some minutes impacted by a lot of these because Stefano's obviously going to be playing and starting. I feel like the same with Josh King. Welsh is probably on his last legs, but we've seen him sort of float around the team for a lot of last year whenever he was fit. Nelson obviously can play that or an edge role. Tui has a great bench role. Alec McDonald's done the same in the past, and everyone's got massive raps on Valepu at the moment. So I'm a bit concerned about the minutes here when it comes to this prop middle forward position for the Storm. Am I right in having these concerns?
No.
Nope.
Nah, not at all.
Not at all. Sorry, mate. I'm with you.
Yeah, go. No, jump in. Go. It's good to.
Please. I was just agreeing with you.
Non-Storm fan agrees.
I don't think there is any competition. I think he locks in the minutes that we expect from him. Like, who's going to take it off him? I don't see. I see Stefano starting. I see King starting. Loiera's probably locked. Welsh probably either between the two of them. I don't see Naz being an option anymore. He's more of a liability, and he's probably going to play small minutes off the bench or impact stuff. I don't honestly see him doing too much. I don't even see Kamakamika in the 17 over Valepu as well. So unless there's some horrible injuries that happen and they have to really bring him up, I just don't see him coming back up either. The edges are sorted, the props are sorted, the lock's sorted. I think the team's nailed, man. I don't think there's any questions personally, but I'd like to get Trav's opinion on it. Could be wrong.
Yeah, no, I agree. I would. Welsh, I think I love him, but he's probably a bench. If that, I think he'll make it that far, and I think he starts in the bench. I think what'll end up happening is 5-6 matches in, he'll probably end up out of the 17, if not, and Vailepu when that will come in. I think Nas is definitely going to be in the 17. He's in our best 17. He will be an impact player off the bench for sure. 30 odd minutes will be pretty good for Nas. We didn't do everything we could to try and get our one and only signing basically for 2025 in Stefano, and then not play him and give him a concern around what minutes we're going to put him into. So he's the one dude we got. He's the one dude we've signed. He's basically the one need that we had. He will get 55 to 60 minutes. I would be very surprised if that's any less than that. I'm not concerned at all.
I'm glad I asked the question. Moving on to the 2RF positions. So, again, there's a couple of duels that have already been named, so I'll just quickly go over them. So, Bronson Garlick is in the 2RF position with the duel of hooker. Joe Chan was very popular at the start of last year. There's a lot of rumors about him starting. He's floating around the 267K mark. Alec McDonald and Nelson Solomona we just spoke about. Both with that front row forward duel. Trent Liero, 5 to 112K, rightly pointed out already. We anticipate him to get that starting lock position that he's really made his own from last year. Sean Bloor, 534K, and Eliasa Katoa, 717K, coming in as one of the premium options in that 2RF position. Jesse, let you start off with this one. Thoughts around these 2RF positions? It seems like there's pretty much the three top options are obviously going to play very long minutes, big minutes. And then you got just Joe Chan sitting around and hoping someone gets injured for quite some time and we get a cheapie out of it. That would be the ideal thing for super coaches. But yeah.
I don't think I'd go back to Joe Chan if even if he did get his spot back in. So, mate, Eli Katoa, I can't sing his praises enough. He's actually in my team at the moment. I did opt away from the other premium second row, and I threw him back in there because he was a friggin' animal last year. I don't see that slowing down either. I think he's kind of just going to be the most dominant try-scoring second rower next to, who else? Crichton in the league, and I don't think it's much left between them. So, 717, like I love it. I really do. I think he's going to do exactly that almost every week. There might not be a lot of upside to him, obviously, at that price because it's off a 73 average, which is huge. But I think for the premium options, like he's definitely top three. When it comes to that position. So I love it, and it also puts into a bit of perspective too. Sean Bloor's like 200K less than him, and I think he's good value. I really like the value of Sean Bloor. I've kind of been tempting a little bit around it today too, but it's like, how many Storm players is too many? Which is kind of the problem that I've got at the moment because I'm freaking loading my team up with him. I like him at 534, and I think a full season with Munster back healthy as well next to him, I think it kind of gives him a lot more opportunity too, because it did heavily go down the other side because obviously Hughes was just a freaking animal. But I really like Sean Bloor too. I think a second season of good footy for him at the Storm there. Considering the injury history he had with the Tigers and everything coming through, there was a lot of doubts around the quality of him. The potential was always there, but it's great to see him playing good. But yeah, I think he's going to have a breakout year. This one, it's going to probably jump up maybe 5-15 points, somewhere in between that of an average, and he'll be pushing high quality stuff. I'm not too keen on the rest of the second rows. I think between the two of them, you can just pick one and be very confident, I reckon. So,
Trav, what do you got for your boys?
Music to my ears, Jesse. Good calls there. You want to talk about Bloor exploding? I think he's definitely a smoky for for a bigger year. He's only going to get better, and just he played bloody well to start the year, and then kind of particularly with his relationship beside Munster. Now, guess who's back? The Mad Dog's back, right? So, I think that partnership's just immense and going to be awesome. He kind of dropped away a little bit once Wishart came, but Wishart's a very different. very different player. Wishart was literally just to grab the ball, put his head down, and just run as hard as he bloody could. Munster's not like that. I mean, he will do it when he's got to, but he's not like that. And he will play, and he will offload that, and he'll palm you off and look for. And he was looking for Bloor, and to start the year, you know, the 38 against Newcastle in round 3, but then 5 he got 63, 87, 68. So he started quite well. So. Yeah, the Bloor shout-out's really good. Oh, I'm really high on Liero. Really high on him. I think he's going to lock. He's locked down that 13 for sure. He played 61 minutes last year on average. I think that rises to around. There's talk that they want to have him as a 75-8, like between 70 and 80-minute player this year. And I think that's achievable for him. He made an Origin camp last year, so he was the 18th man for the Maroons, the Queensland team. He's so young. He's just re-signed on a bigger deal. He's locked in for a long time. He's priced at. Sorry, I moved it down to get to Bloor. He is priced at 512. Yeah, so on a 52 average at 23 matches, I just think that's really good value. I think that rises as he grows. It was a 0.9 as an average, so he's almost a point a minute. I think that goes up to at least 1 a minute, 1 point a minute as he pushes that to 70 odd minutes. I reckon he's going to push around a 70. He could average 65 to 70, which is just in stupid amounts of value for that. And so I'm very high. But Jesse, you stole my point, and the point is, how many Storm players can you have? Because there's so many of them. Like, there's so many options. You know, and we're going to talk about that in a tick with some other players. But you go through that list, and it's just there's so many dudes, and we can't have that many mouths to feed on a consistent basis to fill your Supercoach team.
Yeah, I just on Liero too. Like, I think he's great. I just don't think there's a lot of upside there, even still. He scored over 60 last season 4 times. But to get a 52.4 average, exactly right. So his floor is next to, his average. Like, he's going to basically on his worst game give you a 45.
And priced at 512, that's going to play pretty much every game. That's very good money.
Yeah, but are you going to spend 500K on a 50?
Well, I don't think he's going to get. Let's see. I think he averages more as he's now got another year in him. He's going to get at least another 10 more minutes. I think that's now going to push to 65, 70.
It would be his 3rd year. Last year he averaged 50, and the season before obviously 34. Nothing too major. But I think I think you can pretty confidently lock in a 55. Yeah, he was 2nd row, and then he got moved around, and then punted to the bench, I think, for a little. But either way, I think you're going to confidently lock in a 55 for him. But I just think, the 2nd row is so dense. There's so many players. There's so many upside players. And I just don't think he has it in his repertoire. If the minutes come and he's like another Yo, then Jesus, that's huge at 500. But I think if you're going to spend 500K on a 2nd rower from Melbourne, I'm going Bloor over him every day of the week.
Well, there we go. That's I'm not going to make a call here. I'm going to sit on the fence.
You can't sit on the fence.
Do. Look, I understand. I think Liero is definitely getting better and improving as a player. I don't think he's a player that I want to spend 500K on. I think there's better options that are a bit cheaper that I might go for. I do actually think he's a nice option for later on in a draft to pick him up. He'll get you very consistent points each week. That's where I'm also probably looking at Liero at the moment. For me and my Supercoach team, I'm looking elsewhere when it comes to 2RF. I'm either going elite or I'm going a little bit cheaper and looking to make some cash with a few of my picks. So definitely can see the upside can potentially be there. I just want to make sure there's a bit more than 4 over 60 points to be able to get that, because otherwise I'm going to sit there with him plateauing around that 5, 10, 20 mark. And I'm not too keen on that option. Halfback, look out. This is going to be one of our big question points here that we talk about a bit more. But first of all, Jonah Pezzett, 5'8" dual, 276K. Tyron Wishart, the gun from last year, who helped Jesse in draft massively, but let's not talk about that anymore. 556K. And Jerome Hughes, halfback only, 805K. Let's go on to our, first of all, the question that we've got there on the screen. So is Jerome Hughes, boys, now an elite option? Let's see what you both think. Have a fight over who wants to grab this one first and run with it.
Trav can have this one.
Oh, it was your point.
It was my point. That's why I want you to do it.
Is Jerome Hughes elite? Yes, 100% he is. He won the Dally M. He's the second best halfback in the competition behind Cleary. He is elite. Yes, 100%. Will I start with Jerome
Supercoach
Hughes?
elite.
Yeah, 100. He averaged 82. So yes, he is. In 2024, I think. What did he do in 2023? It was around mid 60s, 70-ish. Yeah.
70,
so
yeah.
like 73. That's still very good.
Sorry, 70.8.
Yeah. So yeah. So like that's great numbers. That's good. That's good value. Am I going to start with Jerome Hughes in my halfback? No, I am not. I do love him. Do I hold anyone against him for picking him? Absolutely not. I can see why. I don't see a problem with it. The buy in round 2, the game against Penrith to pay 805 turns me off. That's why. That's why I'm not going to start with Jerome Hughes. I think I might be able to get Jerome Hughes. I'm pretty content, honestly, in starting with Cleary and just seeing what happens with Cleary in the first few games. And if he does drop in value, I feel like a Hughes is probably someone I'm going to look at in that sort of, round 10-ish, maybe over Origin kind of period. I haven't looked further on in the buy for the structure of the buys and stuff for the Storm just yet, but he's definitely elite. I have no problems with people picking him. I think he's going to be even better this year.
I'll get Jesse's thoughts quickly. Just I've got 2 cents to put in here, and I'm taking over for a second. Part of this reason, I want to know if I'm crazy not for thinking like this, but one of the huge reasons I'm not even contemplating starting with Hughes right now, he hasn't even entered my mind. I don't want 805K sitting on my bench early on through a buy. I want to make sure those elite players are playing for me within the first few weeks, and I don't have to be impacted by a buy. But anyway, that's just my 2 cents. Don't take that with a bar of soap or a grain of salt. Jesse, off you
go. Look, I love Jerome Hughes. He was the hero we needed last year when Cleary and Hines weren't doing it. And it was amazing. And he kind of pretty much hit the ground running from basically round 2. Obviously, he played Penrith the first game last year, and he scored a 42. But then it was just on 88, 108. Like he didn't really slow up at all. So the only thing that I've got a little bit of it's a tricky one, man. 82 is a massive score. It's a massive average, but he's done it once. And consistently throughout his career, it's been between 65 and 70, which is still very good. It doesn't really put him in that Cleary bracket then, but obviously the last year he got the Dally M and it has. So from last season, I'm all about him. I love him. I did have my doubts going into last season about him. I never said he was super relevant because obviously Cleary and Hines. But yeah, if he can, I'm very happily be proven wrong. If he starts freaking going nuts, I'd be very tempted to go right back to Hughes, but I'm not going to start with him. It's probably going to be again that Origin kind of period where I got him in last year, where I thought, yep, I've already teed it up 3 weeks in advance. Like I know exactly where I'm going with it. But yeah, no, like it is a lot of point.
He's got the round 12 and the round 15 buy. They also have the round 2 buy. So by 15 they're done, and then they play the rest of the year out.
Well, that could be a good thing to do after the last buy and just see him out for the rest of the year and, lock it in all the way through to the last round. So that could be a nice little play there. But I think early days, maybe not. I do think, the Eels game, the Dragons game, even the Manly game, he's going to score well. And I would be surprised if he doesn't score well against Penrith too. So I don't really think the fixtures for him are too much of a worry. The buy sucks. And I know like a lot of sides are going pretty cheap on the second half. So, if you are going to get him, at least have someone half decent to cover him for that week, but it's not going to kill you. Like it's not a bad shout. I think his ownership's going to be really low too, so could be a bit of fun, but yeah, not for me early days.
No, but he is elite.
He is elite.
I was
Yeah.
about to say, I literally was about to say, took the words out of my mouth. He's definitely an NRL elite halfback now, and very, very keen to watch him. Just to be interesting to see when people hit the go button, because I feel like in a way there will be a time at some point throughout this year that we want Hughes in our team. Be interesting to see when we actually do hit the go button on that. 5'8". So we spoke quickly about a couple of the jewels there. A super cheap. This is the cheapies now. They're 198k, guys. That's awesome to see. I got a bit excited when I first seen that and opened the app. Stanley Hewen. So not an option for me at the moment, but I'll be keeping an eye on Stanley if there's ever a reason why they need to play their 7th choice 5'8" for the year. I'm all over old Stanley boys, so very keen to see that. And Mr. Cameron Munster, interestingly, not in our talking boys, but I think this is going to be a bit of a discussion. 609k. Basically, last year was a shell of himself, and ended up coming back towards the back end of the year and actually having glimpses of his best football, and which was amazing to see, because most of the time we actually didn't think he was going to come back at all last year. So he's definitely got it in him. I think he's definitely priced under what he's going to score next year, provided he stays fit. That is obviously this huge thing that we've got probably crossed us for a Supercoach aspect. Jesse, Cameron Munster. We're not talking about Mr. Hewen, unfortunately. Cameron Munster, talk to us.
Mate, I named my team after him last year. Yeah, he was one of the first in my plans, and currently, another spoiler, because I have changed my team again. He's in my team this time too, and that's why I'm worried about how many friggin' Storm players I've got. Yeah, dude, 609k. It's a bargain. This could be the buy of the season. I just think it's huge, man. Like, Cameron Munster could be 750, 800k at some point comfortably. He's done it. He does it every year. I don't think there's too much of an injury worry. I think now he's probably good in, whatever his groin issue was last season. I think that's probably well past. But, man, I just think 609k for a Munster is massive. And I'm very keen on it. So that's my thoughts. I think it's great value. Give me
Trav, go, you man. Here you go.
Oh, I love the Mad Dog. Hell yeah, I love the Mad Dog, but I'm not going anywhere near him on Supercoach just yet. Not going anywhere near him. I haven't looked at him. I don't want him in my team just yet. I want to see what's going on. I'm just not 100% sure how we use him and what we do, whether it is a little bit protective of him because we do need him for the long haul. So there's just a few questions I've got around him. Do I think he's got the upside? I think he's got a big game in him here and there, but I also think he's got a lot of low ones. And I think as he's now getting older, as we are getting more of a list together that surrounds him, I think more we are not having to rely on the Mad Dog to be a Mad Dog as much as what we have in the past. And so I'm not going anywhere near him just yet. I just need to see what's going to happen. And I've got a bit of a cautious approach, but I freaking love him.
You Mad Dog, you. Honestly, you are a Mad Dog. I'm there. Part of me is very tempted on Munster. I think that is massive unders for what we know he can produce in the Supercoach game. Centre wings. So the old CTWs. Moses Leo, centre wing, 214k. Jackie Howarth pictured on your screens right now. Once again, just look at that glorious sight. Absolute specimen. You have been clearly not forgetting arm day either, Jack. So shout out to you for that. 426k, the second cheapest centre wing option at the Storm right now. Just let that soak in while I go over this. Grant Anderson, 444k. Xavier Coates, 497k. Will Warbrick, 522k. Suafar Longo has the fullback dual, 527k. And Nick Meaney is the top dog here, 619k. Has had the fullback dual taken away. So he's literally only the CTW option moving forward. Trav, centre wings. Let's start with our big question here. Jack Howarth, is he the go-to centre mid option in the game. I'm not talking Storm. I'm talking in the Supercoach game at the moment. Priced at $426K. Is he almost a go-to or a must-have?
He is my favorite mid-price centre wing. I'm actually going to call it and say he's probably my favorite mid-price player in Supercoach. I'm so excited for him and what he can do. 80 minutes, I think he'll get out on the centres. He's locked in a preseason now in centres. You have to think, this is a dude who averaged 43 and a half points playing centre this year in a spot that he wasn't actually signed or trained in preseason as a centre. He got thrusted into that later on in the year, and that's what he was able to produce. Now he's got a preseason in it. Man, give me Howarth and that muscle.
Jesse, what are your thoughts around the Jack Howarth question?
Initially, I hadn't really looked too far into it. I'd seen him there, and I know you guys were very keen on him, and I was kind of like, yeah, Howarth could be pretty good, and I'm going to roll over and say I'm very sold. I'm super sold, and he's confidently locked into my side now. So, at his price too, he's crazy value compared to the other boys, and I'm not really super keen. I've never really been that keen on Storm centers and wingers in general. I think they kind of just score tries and basically do nothing else. But his base is so good, and he's so it's all new, and he's just incredible. Like the potential, the upside is we don't even know what it is yet. We haven't seen it. We don't know how good he can be yet, and I'm very keen to find out. So, 426, I love it. I think it's great. As far as the rest go, I'm so. Nick Meaney's quite dear at 619, even with the goal kicking. Sewer hopefully gets a spot. We've been waiting for it for a while, but again, I just don't think there's too many other options. Like Jack Howarth is pretty much the guy. I'm very keen. Thank you to you two both. Sold me very easily.
So Jack Howarth, the reason why his average of 40 is an average of 40 is because his first 3 games, round 5, 10, and 15, he went 9, 6, and 23. So that cost the 3 games out of the 13 that he's played cost him dearly. So that average would have been a hell of a lot, a fair bit higher. From there, he goes 62, 52, 49, 81, 64, 41, 36, 37, 71, 35. So he didn't finish strong, 36, 37, 71, 35, but he didn't need to. We had the season locked up. We knew what we were doing. It was get ready for finals mode. So yeah, that's just, to me, that screams value, that screams savior, because we're struggling at the moment to pick rookies. So we need to find some middies, and here's one.
Yeah, I was the first one. I'm going to put my hand up and say it. I'll put him in my first team for 2025. Saw him straight away and thought, what value we've got there. I definitely think he's priced unders. I think what happened last year, and talking a bit more of an NRL point of view, I think he just played his role last year. I didn't think he went out of his way to be too attacking and things like that, where I think now he's got a lot more confidence coming into this year. I think he'll get a lot more ball. I think he's now become one of those centers where he's not in the elite category, not at all at the moment, but he's definitely quickly working his way up in the food chain when it comes to CTWs. I think he's ready to just really get that confidence level up to that sky high region. Another preseason at center, and literally by the sounds of it, exclusively at center this year will be huge for him. I just think it's almost a must-have option. You pretty much have him in your starting team as well. A 426 starting option in the CTW. Give that to me every day of the week at the moment, because I think that's great value. I really
correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that edge is Coates, Howarth, Bloor, Munster. That's the.
I think so.
Damn.
Munster feeding that.
The only worry is, and I think Jesse did mention it, as we had many good Storm CTWs in Supercoach, I cannot remember no one jumps out at me. Everyone's always had great potential. You look at their side, you go, this is star-studded, it's stacked. And just for some reason,
we've had some great centers. Have they been Supercoach relevant? Not really, but they haven't needed to be, because it was a different style. It was a different way that we had. We were running Cameron Smith, Billy Cronk, Cooper Cronk, Billy Slater. Yeah. we were running that, we just didn't need to have that, and then you were skipping the centers because the lines that they were running to get it and feed that out to your Vunivalu's, your Addo Cars, your bloody. There was another guy that went to Union. That name's lost me, so that's going to piss me off. But yeah, anyways, it was another Fijian or another Islander that went and played Union for Australia and the Wallabies. But I can't think of his name now. But we didn't need to have those centers to do that. The centers had to be, just big monster defenders to protect those edges so that those speedsters could go and do what they had to do. Whereas it's different now.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think Jesse rightly pointed out that for me, now none of the other CTWs there for the Storm appeal to me whatsoever.
Yeah.
Last one, Ryan Pappenhausen, the fullback, 616K. Obviously, we've already spoken about Sewer is an option there as well. But he's a dual with the CTW. 616K, we've got the question up there. Is Paps good value at 616K? Feels like he won't have the goal kicking again this year. That will be kept with buddy just had a look. Nick Meaney, sorry.
Should be.
Yeah, what are our thoughts here, boys? Perhaps good value 616 without the goal kicking.
Yep. I think it's great value.
My man.
Yeah, man. Yeah, dude, look, 616 for Paps is massive. I think it's great value. I think compared to the other fullbacks too, obviously the goal kicking would have been really nice. It's going to push him to probably closer to like a 75 to 80 average as well, where he was kind of scoring before. But even still, man, 60, if he hits 60 points, which is very easy for him to do, he can do that in 2 or 3 runs if he just explodes, which he does majority of the time. There's his money. Like, there's his price already. You're going to make money off that regardless. So it gives you a nice cash down option. The next good fullback, I think that's probably worth putting in your side is Drinkwater at 770 and Ponga at 790 too. So you're saving automatically 150K, and you're not getting any less of a player there. You're just sacrificing goal kicking. Yeah, and look, another year back, he's had some pretty monstrous, catastrophic injuries, and he keeps going. So a year back for him, I think he'll be fit, raring to go, great value, good cash down option if you want to spread the money elsewhere. I really like it. I really do. He's been that guy that I've always sort of dropped to if I need to find an extra 100K, and I'm very happy to have him in my side too. So yeah, I like it, man. I like it.
Trav, has Jesse left you with anything to say other than just applauding what he's just said? He's hit the nail on the head.
No, I love it. I love that call. I think I said in the team picker pod that we did last year that Pappenhausen at 616 is just wicked value. I just needed to see a preseason. I need to see what he's going to do in the preseason. I think from all reports, he's having a good one. So, it's going to be really hard to ignore. It's going to be really hard to ignore come TLT.
Yep.
It's hard to disagree there. Not having the goal kicking is the thing that's sticking to me, but I don't know. The last final question that we've sort of glossed over a couple of times, but we'll answer it now just purely for the fact that it's on the screen. So should we be wary of the early draw? So we've gone through it a bit earlier, that round 2 bye as well. Me personally, I'm a bit cautious on starting with many Storm players because of that. I don't want to be hurt too much too early. I'm looking more so to bring a few more of them in around that round 4, maybe round 5 mark. Howarth for mine is a different story. I'll be starting with Howarth and I'll just take the hit and I'll have a good centre wing to come in off the bench. What about you, Trav? I'll start with you. Are you a bit wary of their early draw? Is the bye, for instance, a bit of a hesitation?
Yeah, it is. And the Penrith round 3 is the next one. So as much as I've talked about how many Storm boys can we have, I think for me, I will definitely have Howarth at this point in time. I'm going to find it really hard not to start Pappenhausen, but if I start Pappenhausen, I'm putting him in the flex. So just to cover that round 2 bye, and also the Panthers game, I think, the round 4, round 5, as you said, the thing is that we've got we've actually got a really good chance to have a really good look at these guys and see what happens early, and then use your boosts and things from round 4, 5, 6 for some of these Penrith boys. I'm going to find it really hard to not start you, Stefano, but I'm probably not going to, just because of that buy in the Panthers game, which gives me a free look to have a look come round 5 for him. When I can get in without his price rise, because remembering, for anyone that's new, it's 3 games.
Yeah.
Yep.
Very, very
3
valid
games.
point. And
yeah, they've got to play. You've got to get them in by that 3rd game. Go.
No, I was just going to say very valid point on what you made. And I think what you also said about the little bit of gameplay there as well is it makes a lot of points. And we might even do a bit more about that as we go and just give people a bit more pointers if they are new to the game or they have finally getting into it a bit more seriously as well, and just give them a bit more pointers around some of those little in-game sort of ways of going about things as well. Jesse, do you have any final comments on that? Are you wary of the draw?
I've said it before. I think when it comes to the draws, especially early on, it's more so if you can cover them, then I'm not worried. Because they're players that I'm going to want to have. Like Eli Katoa is a guy that I really want to have. But again, the second row position in general, you have more options. You don't just have 2 guys that you have to worry about. So Harry Grant, I would be definitely worried about spending that much money and having one guy who's probably going to be cheap to cover him. But in the second row position, you've probably got more options. Hughes is the same. Munster's the same. Like, you need to have someone good to cover him that week, especially early on, because it's very quick. You get left behind very quickly. And if you want to really make up moves, like, you really have to take off from the beginning, because it's really hard to claw your way back, down the line. So, the flex position's nice. I think perhaps probably worth it in the flex spot, even still with the early start. But again, man, like, you get an extra week to have a look because of the buy price-wise. And then the fact that they have Penrith, I think if you're going to play Penrith, you kind of want to play them early anyway.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's going to be too much of a problem playing Penrith, like, round 3.
Coming back from
But the
Vegas.
good thing is, yeah, exactly right. And I think the good thing with it will be is, like, you'll see the break evens going after that Penrith game. So when they go into the Dragons game, where you can basically say, look, okay, it is away, but it's Melbourne against the Dragons, who we would expect to walk them. You'll know what the break evens are. So, okay, look, I can happily use. I'm going to be prepping my boost in round 4, no dramas, to be getting some Storm guys in that I don't have.
What is
and
a
you can
break
just
even, Jesse?
a break even. Oh, all right. So early on, the rolling averages go off a 3-round average for anyone that hasn't played Supercoach before. Their prices after round 3, essentially, if they have played 3 rounds, nothing changes. But they do accumulate a rolling average, and it's based off what they're priced at for their average. And their break even is the score they need to make to either hold their value, go up in price, or down. That's the score of their average that they're currently priced at. So, like Paps, for example, 616. If he starts scoring, if he comes out with 100, and then an 80, and then that his rolling average right there, he's just scored, what's that going to be, like 90 points, 85, 90 points, but he's priced at a 60. So he's going to have a lower break even because of his price and his average. And that's where you can really make your money. That's all about it. It's all break evens are is just, price fluctuations making money. So you'll notice it pretty quick. You're going to see a lot of players moving to the really hot guys in round 3 because you're going to see some massive negative break evens. And just capitalize on the cash growth. But you don't want to lose too much. But again, with a round 2 buy, you're going to get an extra week because their price isn't going to change to round 4 when they play the Dragons. So capitalize on that fixture, I think.
Very well explained, I think. Hopefully people are writing that down or screen recording it and using that to help them this year with the Supercoach game itself. That is it for, I think, the Storm. I spent plenty of time on it, but I think it was very valid. There's plenty of talking points. As rightly the boys have said, there is a number of options here, realistic options as well. I think it's more so just a question around the timing when you want to hit the go button on a lot of these players and getting that timing right and just remembering that Origin period, they'll miss a few of them will rest afterwards as well. So you don't want to wait too long, because if you're going to wait too long, you may as well wait till after Origin as well, because you'll be having them sit out for too long in the end. So that's it. The Storm look like very, very big Supercoach players for this season.